This is the Blue Hug Journal, where we talk honestly about caregiving, dignity, and the moments that matter. Today's piece: What Caregiver Guilt is Really Costing You. Merriam-Webster defines a caregiver as a person who provides direct care. It defines guilt as a feeling of responsibility for wrongdoing. So, what happens when you put the two together? Caregiver guilt does not fit neatly into either definition. A caregiver is doing something profoundly right, and yet the guilt arrives anyway, layered and persistent and sometimes difficult to even name. It becomes part of the landscape you learn to navigate alongside everything else you are already carrying. And it does not matter whether you are caring for a parent in their 80s, a spouse after a diagnosis, an adult child living with a disability, or a sibling who needs you in ways neither of you ever anticipated. The guilt finds you regardless. This episode is for all of it. And for all of you, the guilt has many faces. Wondering if you are doing enough is where most caregivers start. Enough visits, enough research, enough patience, enough presence. The bar keeps moving and you keep reaching for it, and somehow it is never quite where you left it. Then there are the decisions, medical choices, living arrangements, daily routines. Nobody handed you a manual. You are making consequential calls in real time, with incomplete information and a heart that is already stretched thin. And when you second guess yourself at 2 a.m, guilt is right there waiting. Losing your patience is its own kind of weight. Saying something you cannot take back in a moment when you are exhausted and simply human. That particular guilt tends to linger longest, replaying in quiet moments when you least expect it. And then there is the guilt that surrounds everyone else in your life. The spouse who goes to bed alone while you're on the phone with a care coordinator. The kids whose events you missed. The friends who stopped calling because you were never available. And sometimes the siblings who have an opinion about how you are handling things, without being fully in it alongside you. Professional caregivers carry their own version of this, the weight of caring for someone else's person with the same devotion you would bring to your own family, knowing your shift ends and theirs does not, and taking that home with you anyway. For those on the long road, the one without a clear finish line, the guilt takes on a different texture altogether. It does not arrive in chapters. It becomes background noise, and somewhere in that long stretch, the thought of relief crosses your mind, and then comes the guilt about the thought itself. What guilt is actually telling you? Guilt shows up when there is a gap between who you are and who you believe you are supposed to be. Caregivers are quietly held to an impossible standard, one that demands patience without limit, presence without rest, love without resentment, and selflessness that somehow never runs dry. Nobody announces that standard out loud. It just settles in over time, and guilt is how you feel it pressing on you. When it arrives, it is worth sitting with one honest question. Is this guilt pointing to something you genuinely need to change? Or is it pointing to an expectation that was never realistic in the first place? Most of the time, if you answer honestly, it is the second one. Your dignity is not a reward for perfect caregiving. You are a whole person, someone with needs and limits and a life that existed before caregiving entered it. You bring yourself fully to this role, and that self deserves the same care and regard you extend to everyone around you. None of that changes because the caregiving is hard or long or consuming. Dignity is not something you earn by doing everything right. It belongs to you regardless. The caregiver who has snapped, who has cried in the car, who has thought the unthinkable thought on a hard night, is a human caregiver doing an extraordinarily hard thing. Guilt will tell you otherwise. You do not have to let it have the last word. Now, 3 questions to ask yourself. First, Of all the guilt you are carrying right now, how much of it is pointing to something you can actually change? And how much of it is holding you to a standard no one could meet? Second, is there someone in your life who knows the full weight of what you are carrying? Not a piece of it, all of it? Third, when did you last treat your own needs as something that matters, not as something to get to when everything else is handled? Guilt does not mean you are failing. It means you care deeply in circumstances that are genuinely hard. The caregiver who feels guilty is almost always the one who is trying, and trying, imperfectly and persistently, across however many years this road turns out to be, is enough. You are allowed to be human in this. Your dignity is not up for debate. We're here for dignity, independence, and comfort. Share this with someone in the caregiving journey with you. You're not doing this alone. Bathe with us. We're the Blue Hug. The Blue Hug Journal is produced by the Blue Hug in partnership with Brilliant Beam Media